If members wish to remove their jackets, they may do so. So I'm just going off this now, aren't I? Can Council please note, in accordance with the time limits set for Council meetings, a guillotine will be effective 3.5 hours after the start of this meeting, unless Council agrees otherwise. May I remind members that this meeting will be streamlined on webcast from the Council's website and will be recorded and available on the Council website. May I also remind members of the public that the budget meeting is one item agenda specifically to agree the budget 2020-21. Apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillors Chauhan, Hewitt, Judd and Sykes. I have communication. I have had notice that Baron Robert Sheldon passed away recently. He was the MP for Ashton-under-Lyne between 1964 and 2001, and during part of that time included Failsworth and Hollingwood. Councillor Dean has asked to say a few words. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you say, Councillor Sheldon, Lord Sheldon was an MP from 1964 to 2001, and then he got elevated to the peerage and served in the Lords, at the House of Lords from 2001 to 2015 when he retired. And he's got a wonderful backstory to his life. He was the son of an immigrant family from Iraq, and he became very successful in business before he became an MP. During his time as an MP, he actually served on a number of occasions as a minister based in the Treasury, and also he was the chair of some very influential committees in Parliament. How I come to know Robert Sheldon, as certainly at the time he was known, is that he was really supportive, particularly when I was the mayor in 97 and 98. As well as that, he was very, very involved in helping his constituents, and he was one of the most personable people you could ever wish to meet. He really used to listen, he used to engage communities, and he was a thoroughly good MP for the whole of the community. And I think that's reflected in being elected 10 times continuously in his constituency of Ashton, and even when it actually changed and incorporated Failsworth from 97 to 2001. So I think that really it is a loss, but I think it's a celebration of a wonderful life. He was 96 when he died, and throughout that time, apart from the last 3 years, he was politically active, contributing, and really giving an enormous amount to the people of not just Ashton and Failsworth, but the whole of the country. So we must send our sympathies to the family, but we must remember what his great achievements were for both this area and the country in general. Thank you, Mr.
Could I ask Council to join me in a minute's silence, please? Declarations of interest. If you have a disclosable pecuniary interest arising from ownership or occupation of a property in Oldham, please raise your hand to declare this. The Standard Committee have given a dispensation allowing members who have an interest arising from ownership or occupation of property in Oldham to participate and vote on the setting of council tax and matters directly related to such decisions, including the budget calculations. In addition, if you have a separate pecuniary, personal or prejudicial interest, please can you declare it now? There will also be a form circulated around the chamber for members to complete if they have a pecuniary, personal or prejudicial interest. Yeah. Councillor Roberts.
Personal interest as a member of the GMB.
4G. Item 4G, same, member of Unite.
Member of Unison and Unite, item 4G.
Item 4G, member of the GMB and Unison.
Item 4B, member of Unison.
Item 4G, member of Unite.
Item 4G.
Unite.
So, personal interest, member of GMB and a member of the parish council.
Pecuniary interest on 4G, member of Unite.
Personal interest, member of GMB.
Personal interest, Madam Mayor, on 4G by virtue of being a member of Ulster.
Pecuniary interest, item 4G, due to employment with Unite.
Personal interest, member of GMB.
4G, personal interest, member of GMB.
Personal interest, member of
4G, personal interest, member of GMB.
Personal interest on 4G, member of GMB.
Personal interest, 4G, member of Unite.
Personal interest, 4G, member of Unison.
Personal interest, member of the GMB, 4G.
Personal interest, member of GMB, 4B.
Personal interest, member of Unite.
Personal interest, member of GMB, 4G.
4G, personal interest, member of NEA.
Personal interest, 4G, member of Unison.
Personal interest 4G, member of Unite.
Personal and pecuniary interest, 4G, member of GMB.
Personal interest, member of Unite. Personal interest, 4G, member of Unite.
Personal Ulster.
Personal interest 4G, member of Unite.
Personal interest, member of the National Education Union.
Personal interest, Unite. Councillor Gloucester.
Not any of those unions, but I think I really need to declare personal and pecuniary interest in relation to the elements of the GMCA budget, in view of my employment by GMP.
Unfortunately, I'm the same as Chris on that item for GMCA.
Pecuniary, GMCA.
Madam Mayor, a point of clarification. There are members around me asking the question about those members that have a pecuniary interest in relation to employment or a pension from Greater Manchester Police. What impact does that have on their ability to take part in the meeting tonight?
So it seems as though what you're saying is that you've got a pecuniary interest in the matter relating to the precept. So that's just item 4 on the council summons, where the pecuniary interest would mean that the member would have to absent from the discussion. It's effectively 4.4 is the issue relating to the mayoral precept.
Are we all clear? No. Are we okay to move on then? Item 4, the budget 2021. Does Council agree to the suspension of Council Procedure Rule 14, Rules of Debate, to enable the Leader of the Council to exceed the time limit for his contribution in moving the administration budget to 15 minutes with a 30-second extension if required, and the Deputy Leader of the Opposition Group in moving the Opposition budget a time limit of 10 minutes with a 30-second extension if required? All other speakers will be limited to 4 minutes with a 30-second extension. Thank you. Does Council agree to amend the order of business in the summons to enable the debate on the capital programme and the revenue budget to take place at the same time, in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 12.4c? The order of business will be item 4A, item 4D, item 4E, item 4B and F at the same time, item 4G and then item 4C. Council agreed? Also, can I remind members that regulations have been implemented requiring recorded votes on specific decisions at this budget meeting? I will inform you when a recorded vote is required. Does Council note the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 10th of February 2020 as circulated? Item 4A, I call on Councillor Roberts to move and Councillor Jabbar to second the Housing Revenue Act estimates for 2021, 2024, 25. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in moving the HRA account estimates, I just wanted to say a few words. As the report outlines, we're asking Council to agree for an increase in rents of 2.7% in accordance with government guidance, the freezing of all service charges and the setting of extra care and Hollybank concierge charges to fully recover costs. But I think the comment that I wanted to make in moving these estimates is that I'm sure that members will have noted that there is continuing capital available in the housing revenue account which can be spent on supporting housing projects across the borough. And the report does outline some of our plans to spend as much as is prudent to implement our housing strategy and to work towards meeting the housing needs of our residents. I'm pleased to note and to be able to inform Council that the Hollybank apartments are almost ready to be handed over. These will provide high-quality accommodation for 20 residents with learning disabilities close to their families in the borough. And I'm hopeful that people will be able to start moving within the next couple of weeks. And I'd also ask that Council notes that Cabinet has previously agreed a number of projects that we're going to be funding from the Housing Revenue account, including securing some better temporary accommodation as part of a longer-term strategy. We currently have about 180 households in temporary accommodation to whom we owe a housing duty, and there's persistently the numbers have been over about 150 for the past year, 18 months, 2 years, and we need a better option for people than people placing families in hotels and bed and breakfast, often not anywhere close to children's schools, for example. So we are going to be providing some better quality temporary accommodation which will be available within the borough. We're continuing to work on the Princess Gate C as part of the town centre developments, and we have made some progress in bringing empty homes into use, a programme which is jointly funded by the Housing Revenue Account and Homes England. And I'm also very pleased, you will probably have seen it, the Cabinet on Monday agreed the purchase of 19 five-bedroom homes on Primrose Bank. These will be available for an affordable rent, which we're hoping will be actually affordable and less than the 80% which the government reckons is affordable. And we currently have over 2,600 families who need a house of 4 or more bedrooms on our waiting list. And clearly it's going to take an extremely long time for us to be able to meet this need. And 19 homes is a start, a welcome start for those 19 families, and I hope that Council will agree that this is a worthy way of spending some of the money. I'm optimistic that the next time the Council discusses the HRA estimates, we will have much lower balance, reflecting our investment that we will have made in much needed homes as set out in the report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to second this report. And just to add on what Councillor Roberts had just said, that I too welcome the 19 homes that we're going to be acquiring at Primrose Bank, as well as providing much needed accommodation for families. These properties will have the latest technology fitted on them, so they actually produce renewable energy, and hopefully all of the power need of those houses will be met from the technology that we're putting in there. And Madam Mayor, I'm very proud to say that this is a leading project, not just in this country, but actually right across Europe. And I'm hoping that this will be the beginning of something exciting that we can replicate in other housing projects that we do in the borough. Thank you.
Thank you. Does Council agree the recommendations as circulated? Agreed the recommendations. Item 4, I call on Councillor Jabbar to move and Councillor Fielding to second the statement of the Chief Financial Officer on reserves, robustness of the estimates and affordability and prudence of capital investments. Councillor Jabbar.
Happy to move item 4D on the agenda, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Sorry. Does any member wish to speak? No. Does Council agree the recommendations are circulated? Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? Agreed the recommendations. Item 4E, I call on Councillor Jabbar to move and Councillor Fielding to second the council tax reduction 2021. Councillor Jabbar.
Happy to move, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? Agreed the recommendations. All those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? Item 4B and 4F. I call on Councillor Fielding to move and Councillor Jabbar to second the Capital Strategy and Capital Programme 2021 to 2024 and 25 and the Revenue Budget 2020-21 and Medium Term Financial Strategy 2021 to 2024-25. Councillor Fielding.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's very sad to have to give this speech this evening. Last year, our budget saw the cuts since 2010 reach £208 million. That's 60% of our total budget gone, thanks to austerity introduced by the Conservative and Liberal Democrat coalition and then continued by Theresa May. Last year, I had to stand up and explain which new services would be cut and which opportunities would be missed. The scale of cuts here in Oldham is not comparable to every other council. Oldham has been specifically targeted for deeper cuts than many other places by this government. Out of 343 councils in England, only 5 have had more money taken from them as a proportion of their budget than us. This council is responsible for social care, for educating our children, and for looking after our roads and parks, amongst many other things. Every year of cuts from central government makes that more and more difficult. Every year of cuts makes life harder for the people of Oldham. I was hoping that this would be the year that things began to change. We've heard so much about levelling up. It was going to be a new era under Johnson with fairer funding and proper investment. Instead, we're now £215 million down on 2010 and hearing plans to cut more from places like Oldham through the so-called Fair Funding Review so that southern shires can have more money. It will take a lot more than warm words and a colourful turn of phrase to overcome our current situation. Just yesterday, there were 2 reports published that show the stark reality that we face. Sir Michael Marmot conducted a review in 2010 into health inequalities in England. The review highlighted the link between health and wealth. Sir Michael sent central government, local government and wider society several challenges to tackle the inequalities that he found. They were things that we should all be aspiring to. Give every child the best start in life. Enable young people and adults to maximise their potential and have control over their lives. Fair employment and good work for all. A healthy standard of living for everybody. Healthy and sustainable places and communities. And better ill health prevention. Yesterday, 10 years on, he published a new report assessing progress and the findings made for grim reading. For the first time in more than 100 years, life expectancy across the country has stopped increasing. The north-south divide on health has gotten worse. And the poorest 10% of northern women are actually seeing their life expectancy fall. As Sir Michael observes in his new report, austerity will cast a long shadow over the lives of the children born and growing up under its effects. It has taken its toll in all the areas set out by the original review, weakening health and weakening society. Addressing this is everybody's business. Alongside his new report yesterday, Sir Michael highlighted the work that Greater Manchester has done to improve health locally, from the Greater Manchester Good Employment Charter to the place-based approach to public services that we pioneer here in Oldham that he described as essential to effectively tackle health inequality. Greater Manchester is held up as a case study of local government and communities making a difference. And I want to pay tribute to the work that colleagues in this room and elsewhere have done. It was great to see Richmond Academy showcased on BBC News last night for the brilliant work that they're doing, taking a whole family approach to health and nutrition. And I'm really pleased that Richmond Academy have been in touch today and invited me to go down and see what they do for myself. But only so much can be achieved while nationally we're being held back. The second report published yesterday was the Office for National Statistics Quarterly Economic Review. It shone a light on the impact of poverty on educational attainment, showing that nationally, pupils entitled to free school meals have made less progress in recent years than their wealthier peers. Oldham again has something to be proud of here, because unlike many areas, the gap in attainment here between rich and poor is closing. But the national picture still sounds a loud warning. A very dry and technical part of the ONS report mentioned that they've been miscalculating the wealth of the richest 1% in recent years. It turns out that the top 1% have quite a bit more money than we thought. And so despite government claims to the contrary, inequality nationally has risen through the austerity years. People are right to be angry. They see a country that is becoming more unequal in terms of wealth, in terms of health, and in terms of opportunity. They see a country more divided. Here in Oldham, there have been consequences for our staff. Many of those that are employed to deliver services for our communities are doing jobs alone that would previously have been shared between 2, 3, or even more people. We've also seen councillors stepping into the space previously filled by officers, because the cuts mean that we have fewer people to deliver the services on which local people rely. As an example, a few months ago I found myself acting as a welfare and benefits advisor to a local resident living in fuel poverty. A constituent of mine in Failsworth was attempting to apply for a grant for a new, more efficient boiler through Warm Homes Oldham. He'd lived with his mother for many years, but when she passed away without having left a will, he had difficulty navigating the system that would see the home transferred into his name. As the house was not considered his in the eyes of the law, he could not make an application for a grant from this council. He approached me for assistance, and in the absence of specialist advice to go through the legal process, it was me who ended up printing off the forms from the government website, filling them in, and going down to the court in Manchester to go through the process with him. Fortunately, the issue with the ownership of his property was resolved. He got his new boiler, and as a result of the work that this council does, he's now been lifted out of fuel poverty. This is a great outcome for my constituent, but it's not really my role to provide legal advice or support in this way. And this only happened because my constituent had the confidence to approach me and ask for support. Most members in this chamber will have similar stories of where they have had to step in to spaces that councillors wouldn't normally. But the more worrying thing is how many more people like my constituent might be out there. People who need help from public services but don't have the confidence to come forward and seek it. Instead, suffering in silence because austerity has gutted the services that used to be there to proactively help them. I wish austerity was truly over and that government had returned even some of the money Oldham needs to be able to push on. I'd love to be able to stand up today and announce no rise in council tax, because I know how hard it is for families who are struggling. Council tax is fundamentally unfair. It cannot be right that somebody in Oldham on the lowest council tax band pays more than twice as much as somebody on the same band in Westminster, just because Westminster has so much more money from business rates. It can't be right that poor people pay 8% of their income as council tax, while for the rich it's less than 1%. This happens because it's easier for government to make councils responsible for more services and encourage them to increase council tax to pay for it, rather than take tough funding decisions themselves and be held accountable. Council tax and the value of your home in the early 90s should not be the thing that determines how much money is available for adult social care or looking after vulnerable children. But as a council, we have to weigh up the tension between funding services properly and keeping money in people's pockets. We've made the decision not to increase council tax as much as we could because it's not fair to residents. But there is a rise because without it we cannot take Oldham where it needs to be and deliver the services that our residents need. We have a fantastic borough with wonderful, committed people, great businesses and beautiful countryside. This budget enables us to take Oldham to the next level, not levelling up, as if all we can aim for is to be more like Reading or Guildford, but making Oldham the place that we want it to be. This budget allows us to deliver our bold Creating a Better Place plan, investing in creating more than 1,000 new jobs, 100 new apprenticeships, 2,000 homes here in the town centre, new health centres and new leisure facilities. It's another step towards establishing Oldham as the leading green borough in Greater Manchester. We'll be carbon neutral as a council by 2025 and as a borough by 2030. And with northern roots, we'll be known around the country not as the poorest borough or a grim northern town, but as a pioneering place like we were in the days of King Cotton. We're still battling every day to stretch a little further, boosting education while schools are underfunded, improving social care while the government dithers over how to pay for it properly, keeping the streets clean and prosecuting the fly tippers that choose not to do their bit. This budget allows us to take more control in our own hands. With this budget, we're standing up for Oldham. Our opposition choose to tinker around the edges, but that's not good enough. Every decision in this budget reflects a determination to deliver value for money to our residents, to make a positive difference in people's lives, and to give them an Oldham of which they can be proud. And it is a budget that includes no compulsory redundancies. Every part of Oldham has something to celebrate in this budget. We'll build the Oldham we want by working hard together as a borough, not sniping from the sidelines or playing one area off against another. That's what Labour is offering here, a budget for the whole of Oldham and a plan for a brighter future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Fielding, you made a good speech and you did credibility in helping one of your constituents. You know
Excuse me,
4 years,
excuse
4
me.
years of my help asking for help from the Lib Dems. What did they do for me? Nothing.
Mr. Brown, please. Thank you. Please. Thank you.
It was a valid point.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Local government continues to face funding crisis that this Tory government has failed to address. As Councillor Fielding outlined, Tory austerity has led to dire consequences for local people in Oldham and throughout the country. The impact on the council finances has been both punishing and sustained. Since 2010, we have had to make cuts of more than £215 million. That is over a decade of cuts and year-on-year reductions. This severely restricts our ability to support local people and invest in important services we provide. The national implication for this, as clear as leaders touched on it earlier, 14 million people now living in poverty, and a huge increase in number of people living rough. What a wasted decade, Madam Mayor. But here in Oldham, we are doing our best to limit the damage of the Tory cuts. We understand that local hard-working people and families face a daily challenge to balance their own budget. Low pay, an increase in cost of fuel, food and energy makes life a struggle for many in this town. That's why we are proposing tonight the smallest increase in council tax that we can, a 0.99% increase for general services and 2% specifically for adult social care to support elderly and the most vulnerable. This is amongst the lowest increase across the country. We are doing everything we can to keep council tax low for local people, as well as continually reforming services that we provide. It's not fair, Madam Mayor, that the government expects us to pick up the cost of the demand created by ageing population. This should be funded by central government and not be a burden for the local taxpayer here in Oldham. We urgently await a promised new approach for adult social funding to be set out by the government. We have done our best in this budget to limit the damage done by the Tory cuts by protecting our frontline services and keeping them strong. However, we still need to find £3 million of saving, and this will be done from back office services and reducing the number of buildings that we operate from, as well as using our reserves, which will help to protect our services and keep council tax increases to a minimum. As we look to the future, local government finance arrangements remain unclear. How much money we will receive from government is unclear. This makes it very difficult for us to plan long term. As we stand, the coming year, I've no doubt, will require additional cuts from our budget. So what are we doing about this? Well, we're doing everything we can to lobby for a change to provide sufficient funding so that we can provide a much needed services within the council. The financial challenges have been very tough, Madam Mayor, but here in Oldham, as the leaders explained, we are doing something to change the outlook for the people of Oldham. We're investing £306 million in our Creating a Better Place plan, which will deliver 2,000 properties, but also actually improve our budget position. Madam Mayor, we always try to use the money that we raise effectively, and this is something that we can be proud of in this council. Through our local investment fund, working with the communities, we have invested £400,000 in every district in this borough. For example, we have invested in Satellite Centre in Saddleworth, Westminster Gardens in Failsworth, and in Coldest, the Pocket Park on Martha Street and Ripon Street. So, Madam Mayor, as we've demonstrated tonight, despite the financial challenges, I want to offer a message of hope for the people of Oldham. This Labour administration is fully committed to delivering the promises that we have made. We will protect frontline services and regenerate the town, creating a better place for Oldham. I hope everyone can support this budget. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Bates, please be quiet. Please be quiet. I don't care, please be quiet. Amendment, item 4G. I call on Councillor Gloucester to move and Councillor Al-Hamdani to second the amendment to the Revenue Budget and Capital Programme as circulated and detailed in the Council's summons. Councillor Gloucester.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Right, I rise to propose the Liberal Democrat Group's amendment to the administration's budget. Firstly, and I'm sure Abdul will do this at some stage, I'd like to thank the officers who assisted me so professionally in drawing up this amendment, that being Mark Stenson, Vicky Crew and Helen Cairns. They've been invaluable in the process. It's noticeable that once again the opposition Conservative group have failed to put any amendment of their own in. Indeed, I actually wonder if the Conservative group have even looked at the budget for our town, or are happy to simply continue to support the stranglehold that the Conservative government has on our local finances, which yet again sees us having to spend reserves to prop up a budget that is so lacking in funding. As the Shadow Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Resources, I do not envy the task of my administration colleague, Councillor Abdul Jabbar, and our officers from the Treasury team had in drawing up a balanced budget. For once more, they were forced by a Conservative government to make cuts of £18.169 million on top of a gap of £21.916 million last year. And you don't have to be a really good adder-upper to know that that's £40 million. I said last year that this local authority funding is on a precipice. This year, we tip even further over that precipice, and with warnings from our own financial responsible officer, our own external auditors, and indeed the peer challenge team who visited Oldham in January, Oldham Council is steadily heading towards a financial crisis of such proportions that unless we refrain from propping the budget up with reserves, we will be in a position that we will only be able to deliver statutory services. The age of austerity is over, allegedly, and so it may be for councils supported by this government. Unfortunately, Oldham Council, as Sean so well explained, isn't. Central government just does not seem to understand the impact of its decisions on Oldham Borough, our people and our townships. The impact, of course, is that local councils like Oldham are yet again forced to burden local people with continued higher council tax bills whilst cutting services. I believe that it's only because Oldham has an excellent financial team that our council taxpayers are still largely unaware of the full extent of the financial pain that we suffered and are suffering on a daily basis. So we, as a responsible opposition, recognise that we must raise the maximum revenue we can, whilst making significant savings to the overall budget. Accordingly, the Liberal Democrat group will support the proposal of this administration to increase council tax once more by the 0.99% rise, with the 2% for adult social care added on. And we do accept the bulk of the administration's savings proposals. We again do this with a heavy heart because I know that many of our poorer residents are really struggling and that they resent facing increasing bills that they find hard to pay, and an increased council tax bill will be one of them. This increase is not helped by the Labour Combined Authority Mayor's increase in our council tax bill, which is unchecked and I understand is equivalent to 45.59% increase. No wonder that this is being called the Burnham tax. Accordingly, the Liberal Democrat, to ease the plight of our poorer residents, are happy to maintain the council tax support scheme at its current level to help those on the lowest incomes to reduce their bills. I'm pleased to see recognition of the Liberal Democrat proposals for a new health centre in Sean Crompton, and now the administration recognises that this is a way forward against last year's suggestion that it wasn't. We wish to extend this methodology to ensure that the whole of the borough has adequate and modern health facilities, something that fits in with the administration promises and concerns with regards to healthcare borough-wide that we've heard off the leader tonight. Another idea previously rejected by this administration and now taken on board. It will be interesting to see after today which of our other proposals are subsequently taken on board, as has happened in previous years. I now want to turn to our amendments. In all honesty, our amendment's modest, but it's meaningful. The Liberal Democrats' amendment identifies nearly £2 million in further savings over the next 2 years that can be made without impacting on frontline services, and it identifies innovative ways in which it can be spent. Our three main aims, which I'm pretty certain are reflected within the administration budget, are tackling health deprivation, combating climate change and regeneration. Our financial savings focus on core areas, on which I shall speak shortly. Some of our proposals have been consistent in recent years, but we will continue to feed these proposals into the budget because even if not accepted now, they will have to be considered in future years to prevent this council sinking deeper into a black hole. Our aim is to improve services for our communities whilst not burdening them with additional costs, and I believe we've achieved that, and my colleague, Councillor Al-Lamdani, will expand upon those areas. Through prudent savings, we would find the money to invest in our highways, and in particular our long-neglected footways, to strengthen our environmental team in order to tackle dog fouling and fly tipping, to support the construction of new health centres for Sean Crompton, Chadderton and Saddleworth, and to reverse the administration's cuts to parish council and ward members' budgets, keeping money for local people to invest in their local communities, which apparently is what localism is all about. Savings. We've identified in some areas as small but meaningful, but savings large in financial terms but small in the relevant to the budget. For example, the vacancy management factor, certainly to the press not as sexy as tea and biscuits, but that's £500,000 with just a saving of 1%. A further 500,000 by increasing the use of capital receipts, by revisions to the transformation programme to focus on our priority areas, a simple reduction in the amount of stationery purchased, £2,000 per annum, a reduction in meeting where refreshments are provided, I think enough's been said about that, £5,000 an annum travel budgets, £37,000 car allowances. I'm sorry to have to bring that here again, and I accept the administration acknowledge that what should have been done hasn't been done, but I really do not want to come back with car allowances again next year. Trade union support. At the last full council meeting, Councillor Jabbar stood up and told us that we've lost a third of our workforce over the last 10 years. However, in relation to trade union funding, this hasn't fell, and I will say again, everybody needs to take the pain in relation to cuts, and unfortunately this is one area which is not supported by us and should fit in with our current standing. And we also want to permanently reduce the general training budget by £150,000 per annum. We want to look at marketing and communication services, and it's a simple way forward by deleting the 6 vacant posts that are there and getting rid of the Borough Life magazine, which some people do actually describe as propaganda on the rates or useful cat litter, one of the two. As a council, we need to look at generating funding by advertising on our website with a potential income stream estimated at £5,000. And we also want us to utilise digital platforms in libraries to access newspapers and magazines rather than pay for paper copies that, in fairness, are unhygienic and, dare I say, go missing. £18,000 a year. A constantly overachieving area for the councils is highways inspections, and setting a formal target of £100,000 in view of their outstanding performance is, in our view, easily achievable. If we sort the training budget out to make it permanent, that saves us £150,000. Car allowances. Last year, this administration agreed with the Liberal Democrats that a review of car allowances was overdue. So far, nothing has come of this review, so in our budget amendment, we're proposing we end the entitlement to a £500 lump sum payment. If you actually look in your green books, you will see a long list of people who are being paid car allowance. If you actually have a look and see if you recognise any of those people, you'll be amazed. But if you go into your area office and speak to your area team and ask them if they're getting anything, I'm pretty certain they'll tell you that they're not. Because in all the time I've been going around and asking people that have met me on the street, do you get car allowance? Only one person has actually been able to tell me that they were. Thank you. So I'll round off just to say that we all know that savings have to be made, but we also know that we need to continue providing a service to our communities. And on that basis, I would ask that you consider our budget amendments and approve them accordingly. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hamdani. Can
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our budget amendments put forward a clear set of spending proposals in 4 key areas: localities, environment, infrastructure and healthcare. We've identified a series of savings that can be made for the Council's plans. We do all know the impact that Conservative cuts have had on our spending power, and we accept that. But it is possible to box clever. We cannot continue to spend beyond our means, and I would like to endorse the proposals put forward by my colleague in addressing this. But in many ways, I get to be the Sandy Toksvig of these amendments. While Chris has identified what's being eliminated, I get to say what goes forward to the next round for our support. Oldham's record on health and on deprivation is one that should concern every councillor in this room. It does concern every councillor in the room, every resident beyond it. And that is why we've identified the need to advance new health centres in Shaw, Chadderton and Saddleworth, bringing forward existing plans, developing new ones. We've also proposed a fund for improving our footpaths, which are slowly falling further into disrepair. Now, as a council, we're talking about healthcare and encouraging healthy lives, but it's important that we join up those dots. We're encouraging people to go out walking, but their paths aren't in a good enough condition for them to do that. It doesn't add up. Joined up thinking can save what we spend on healthcare by making simple proposals elsewhere. We've proposed additional funding on green energy. The commitment of the Council to carbon neutrality and the work of the cross-party group is extremely welcome. It is easy to look at the need to invest in environmental solutions as something maybe for the medium term, maybe for the long term. It is not. Any additional spending that we can make today is not a cost. It is an investment in our community and in our futures. On infrastructure, we've proposed a £6.5 million scheme to fund brownfield remediation spread over 5 years. And we all know in this room that that is money that we are having to put forward because funding for brownfield remediation has been cut from the Conservative government. Now, it is crucial to our plans to maintain the green spaces across the borough that we not only will we say that we will not build on green spaces, but we back up those words with funding. In this case, funding from the savings presented by my colleagues and not increased borrowing. Oldham, as a borough, has a strength in its communities, and it is vital that this council continues to develop them alongside each other, all of the areas growing stronger together. The Liberal Democrat ethos of locality and community are at the heart of our commitment to restore both parish council funding and the grant that is withheld by Oldham Council is not withheld by the vast majority of councils across the country. And it is sad that we are one that decides to do that. Additionally, we're proposing to return district funding that previously existed. I acknowledge the defence of the Local Improvement Fund, that there are, in the way that it develops the funding to try and improve things for larger projects, but it doesn't address the fact that overall that is a cut in funding for our districts. We've proposed specific funding for the Saddleworth Band Contest. As it's been said that the band contest will not lose out financially. We will carry on saying this until we see exactly where that funding is coming from. As was clear when our proposals came before the Scrutiny Committee earlier this month, there is potential cross-party support for many of our proposals, and indeed, as Chris said, many of our previous proposals have found their way into future budgets. I look forward to seeing which of these do in the future. Now, until the UK government follows through on its promises, as Sean said, after the last election, to ensure that spending comes back to the regions, to our areas, we are going to be forced to have to make hard decisions. It's crucial that we show that they're justified, to ensure that the Council is not exposed to unnecessary risks in pursuing effective ways to manage its budget. Showing that we make those choices and spend money carefully is the only way to build back trust between the community and this Council. Thank you.
Does any member wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Hamlet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My words haven't come up. There you go. It's the power of technology. I'd just like to support what my colleague has said in regards to parish council grant funding. This is both as a member here and obviously a member of a parish council, but also the fact that, yes, whilst we are proposing to reinstate the grant funding that has been chipped away since 2017, in respect to the leader's personal feelings towards parish councils being places of hot air, the only reason as to why the only reason as to why folks in parish council areas have seen the rise in the precepts is to down this council fund being withheld by this administration. They do play vital roles in acting on behalf of communities they represent. In Saddleworth, of course, they fund local services such as allotments, graveyards, environmental initiatives such as tree planting and supporting carbon reduction schemes and returning their civic hall and, of course, running the neighbourhood plans to ensure that development across the district is as far as they can ensure in line with demands and preferences to the residents. And, of course, in Shore and Crompton, we're funding environmental projects in partnership with Groundwork to help maintain pocket parks, which help to enrich the area. We also offer jointly with the use of local PSSOs, which sort of based in our building, and with Princess Trust as well, who are now using our building. And of course, we hold 3 charity markets as well as a free family fun weekend. Now, of course, they sound brilliant on the upset, but this is just a snippet of what each parish council does. And at the end of the day, we do fund it collectively through the precepts, but at the end of the day, each councillor is an elected volunteer and they put the time in. And I just think that they do serve really, really well in their areas. So it's vital that they actually get some more help and funding back. I would like to also add about the school holiday funds as well. We've long been concerned about food poverty in this borough, particularly amongst children, pupil premium and free school dinners that the Tories have cut. And no talk of this from the Labour administration have been returned. We've frequently raised this issue here and with the council and with the administration. We would welcome any initiative that would help to address school holiday hunger. Our proposal is clear: to make a specific investment of £50,000 to allow school holiday food clubs to run, to provide meals and added benefits as social interaction as well, if that's any possible. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, personally, I don't know about everybody else, I'm not convinced that the Liberal Democrats have put forward proposals which would produce a balanced budget. I don't think that you can guarantee £100,000 income, for example, on council activity, which is reliant on housing developments and the adoption of roads. Well, that's not a guaranteed income stream, and I think that a blow really takes out £100,000 worth of their proposals. And I also note, as was noted at PVFM, that some of their capital programmes are actually unfunded in terms of the revenue that would, their capital proposals are unfunded in terms of the revenue that would need to be found to support those spending proposals. And I just wanted to comment really, however, on the proposals around the capital programme. As an administration, we've worked hard to find ways of meeting the Tory housing target without needing to allocate Greenbelt land for housing. Creating a Better Place and the Flexible Housing Fund already contains several proposals and funding to make sure that the Council's existing policy of developing on brownfield land first is implemented. This includes the designation of land for homes in the town centre. 2,000 are now proposed, and we're working forward to bring forward additional land where possible. The Flexible Housing Fund will set up a housing company. Work on legal structures is taking place to help us to develop sites. We will develop council-owned sites ourselves, as we believe this will be faster and enable us to build on brownfield first. We're setting up a fund to unlock contaminated and unviable stalled sites for the delivery of new housing. We're investing in the remediation and acquisition of new key brownfield sites for new housing. And we're identifying and developing stalled sites, hopefully using modular build, as this is quicker, where we haven't been able to find a partner to develop. This element of the Flexible Housing Fund totals £16.75 million, and our investment in this programme will allow us to direct or influence what is built, making sure we meet identified housing need, as well as helping to meet the housing target and get closer to having a 5-year housing land supply to enable full protection of opal land. Council will have noted that Hertford Mill is now being demolished. This is a sign of our commitment to brownfield first, as it has been an exhaustive and exhausting process to get to this stage. Members on this side are also well aware of the pressure from the Tory government to meet housing targets. 8 councils in London and the South East have had some planning powers removed after failing the housing delivery test. And Greater Manchester has lost over £60 million in housing money because the GMSF does not set a high enough housing target. And in passing, I would note that in actual fact it was the joint Liberal Democrat and Tory coalition that withdrew the funding for brownfield remediation sites. The Tories themselves do not solely bear the blame for this. We have a considered strategy which identifies the best way of using a substantial investment to deliver brownfield first, and I urge members to support the Labour proposals rather than a relatively small sum which I assume is proposed, so more leaflets can be circulated making baseless claims such as the recent Focus which misleads residents about our long-standing decision to revise our local plan.
Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to oppose the amendment, and I would like to, in the interests of democracy, there's many people watching will feel this isn't done right, but I personally think it is. It's what people voted for. And I would remind the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats that the Conservative councillors are well aware of the nature of the people of Oldham and are fighting tooth and nail to make sure that things are put right. And does he realise that we had a general election in December and they have a dozen MPs in Parliament? We, the Conservatives, have an overwhelming majority. So it's up to us to say we're in tune with the people of the Metropolitan Borough of Oldham. In fact, we're in tune with the people of England and Wales. And it's the Liberals and Labour Party that are out of step. And I get cross when I hear people condemn us. But what I would remind the Liberals is, after the next election, it could be the Conservatives who are the official opposition, and you'll wait and see then. We will bring a detailed budget plan forward, and I can assure the Liberals it'll get more support than theirs will, because we'll really look at things on behalf of the people of the Metropolitan Borough of Oldham, and that's what is needed. Representation for those people out there in Failsworth, in St James, in Oldham, in Saddleworth, in Shaw, that need people to work for them and speak up. And I'm glad Councillor Roberts mentioned planning, because recent planning applications, I haven't had any help from Labour or Liberal Democrats in building on floodplains like Shawbank Road, Greenfield, and we've seen floods. I've been to see them. Has anybody else in this chamber been to Ribble Valley and been to Cumbria to see the floods and the devastation that has caused people? I can tell you, I have been, and I tell you this, if anything, we have it in Saddleworth and at other places in the Metropolitan Borough of Oldham, and we should be concentrating on that, Madam Mayor. And I really get cross when people play politics on a night like this. When it's not equal, we can't answer back. But people out there know this, and they'll answer back in May, big time for the Liberal Democrats. And I think you'll find the much reduced Liberal Democrats and a great number of Conservatives will come back, and then we'll prove who supports the people of the Metropolitan Borough of Oldham, Madam Mayor.
If you don't be quiet, you'll be diverted out of this room.
You'll be part of the overseas development.
Do you like that? I'll follow it through as well, I promise you. Councillor Hartness, please.
Thank you. After that party political broadcast, we'll get back to the amendment. So, Madam Mayor, I rise to support the Liberal Democrat amendment. We have seen over recent years a bit of a tradition of criticising the Liberal Democrat amendments in this budget. It's pleasing, however, that we often see elements of our amendments in subsequent years. It's also good to see this year that following overviewing scrutiny, that some of the proposals will be explored earlier by the Cabinet. We, however, would like this Chamber to support the Liberal Democrats' fully costed amendment in its entirety. That's page 489, by the way, in terms of where that is for you, Hannah. It does require finding some additional savings in order to invest in key areas of health, and environment and regeneration. We all know that this council has now a much smaller workforce than it did 10 years ago. The amount of subsidisation to trade unions has not been reduced to reflect the size of the staff now. Trade unions are important to support employees. This will become more important as workers' rights are not guaranteed following Brexit, and subsidies need to be realistic and appropriate to the workforce. The Labour Party should not allow their affiliations with trade unions to get in the way of doing what's right. In using a variety of savings identified in this amendment, the Liberal Democrats want to ensure new health centres are built in Saddleworth, Shaw and Chadderton. I have raised in this chamber before that Saddleworth does not have the facilities equivalent to some of the new health centres they have in places like Royton. As always, as well as waiting a long time to see a doctor, some treatments that are done outside of hospital elsewhere need to be done in hospital for patients in Saddleworth. We need to end this postcode lottery in terms of primary health care. I recently proposed a motion that declared a climate emergency, and I was pleased that the Council supported this. I'm also pleased that a number of colleagues around me here are doing some great work on the Parish Council in Saddleworth around the environment. This follows a series of representations in this Council by Liberal Democrats to address the climate change agenda and make the Council and Borough greener. It is only right, therefore, that we invest to prioritise this work further. We believe that green spaces are precious and should be protected, and previously developed land should be used. The Conservative government decided they were going to axe funding to support this. We proposed a motion calling on the government to reinstate this and asked for support from the Mayor and MPs. This is an important issue, so we are proposing that the Council invest to ensure that previously developed sites can be used for housing rather than green spaces. The Liberal Democrats believe that local decisions should be made locally, and we were appalled that the Council brought in measures at the last annual Council meeting to axe district funding, and this was without any scrutiny. We propose to reinstate this district funding and also to reinstate the grant money taken from our parish councils. In Saddleworth, local councillors now have a large portion taken off their ward budgets to fund the band contest, with Friday processions, grit bins, Christmas trees and lights, because funding was axed from the district executives. The band contest is an international event. We want funding lost last May at the last annual council meeting to be identified for increasing the events budget, which funds many of the town centre events. This can be used for the band contest. Please support this amendment.
Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to reiterate some of the things that have already been said, but I think the time has come to look at ourselves. We are a council whose collection rate on our council tax is not very good, and I think that that's somewhere where our target is nearly £6 million short. Might seem a drop in the ocean of our spending, our budget, but nevertheless it is there. Now, I think that we could do better on that one. We as councillors take expenses which we are justified in doing, and they're not as... somebody's shaking their head, maybe somebody doesn't. We are awarded expenses as councillors which are not comparable with some other boroughs, but we get on with our work. However, when we have departments that are chaired by various people on the front row, they get paid in addition. Now, nothing wrong with that, but we also have deputies who are paid. Now, do we need to do that? Now we've got a reduction in funding and function of the area partnerships. Do we still need to pay as much as we do for someone to lead those, a chairman? Now, I think that we can look at a number of savings from ourselves here, rather than us looking at making further financial burdens on the council. And I am quite happy to have a look at that. It may not be in accordance with the amendments, but it is something that, sorry, Madam Mayor, but one or two people have gone off piste, so I thought perhaps it was appropriate for me to say so. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight I'd like to touch on two investments in the Liberal Democrat budget amendment. Footpaths and signage. And in the Green Book it's explained how we would achieve the savings to pay for them. This has been proposed for a number of years, however there's still no specific fund to provide for footpaths. It is therefore proposed by the Liberal Democrats that a specific investment fund of 2.5 million for the period of 2020-21 to 24-25 be available within the capital programme. This would equate to 500,000 per financial year over this period. In 2018, there were 427 reported casualties from road traffic incidents in Oldham, according to the Department of Transport statistics. This includes 5 fatalities. In an effort to reduce road traffic incidents, Liberal Democrats have consistently promoted investment in highway infrastructure, a policy which has now been adopted by the administration. To continue these improvements to fund road safety, the Liberal Democrats propose to create a specific fund to replace and maintain signage across the borough. The place is looking uncared for. There's signage that is unreadable, and it's just mind-blowing that it's continued to be like that. There needs to be a specific fund. Currently, there's no specific provision within the administration's budget to replace signage, including vehicle-activated signs, which I keep harping on about, but yet there's still nothing in there. There is also none to maintain existing signage in the borough. Again, it's you drive past them, I report them, and they won't do anything with it. So ward councillors have to fund it. It's coming out of our budgets, and there needs to be a pot of money set at the side for it. Signage which is clear and well maintained will be more visible to drivers, which is particularly important during the winter months, when visibility is already poor due to low lighting levels. Liberal Democrats would also propose some of the budget would be made available to support and establish and maintenance of lorry watch and community speed watch schemes where this is warranted. And for the benefit of the members of the public out there, you'll no doubt hear members from the administration say, oh, no, I can't be doing that, it's not costed, this, that and the other. It's the same old every year, but yet the following year we're told, oh, it's made it into the budget and it's been done, and you think, oh, hang on a minute, I got slated for that the year before, but yet it appears in there. So watch this space, and I urge members to support the Liberal Democrat amendment.
Councillor Hazel, Gloucester.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to speak on the opposition budget. I'm going to make it as quick as possible, just a little bit on the reduction proposals together with the particular investment proposal. Firstly, I want to talk about the proposal to reduce travel budgets to ensure the most efficient method of travel is used for essential council business. In April 2018, the Council received Freedom of Information asking about all flights that have been paid for by the Council between January 15 and 31st of March 18. Within this period, Oldham Council reported a number of flights to different destinations, domestically and beyond. A significant number of these flights were actually funded by external sources. However, a number were incurred by the General Fund, and so there is actually scope to reduce the impact on mainstream funding by at least £5,000. I'm sure that's wrong. Whilst understanding the need for some flights being incurred, the environmental impact of flights should be at the forefront of our planning processes, and as such ensure that the most cost-effective and those with the lowest environmental impact be prepared. Car allowances, again, this thorny little issue, yet again on our budget reduction proposals. After promising last year to review and reduce the amount paid as a lump sum to staff doing 0 or minimal mileage, still, to date, nothing has been done. 557 members of staff received a lump sum of £500 in 18-19, and 46% of those recorded 0 mileage. The Liberal Democrats propose this to review the posts which attract the essential car user allowance and remove from those recording few or 0 miles. Removal from only 100 employees, when you consider the figure that's already been stated of 557, that recorded 0 mileage would save £50,000, so obviously has the potential to provide far more. It is time the administration started to act responsibly and only provide this allowance for those that record the appropriate essential mileage to qualify. Training budgets. It is proposed that the one-off reduction in the general training budget agreed in 18-19 be made permanent to save £150,000. We totally understand the need for training, and I myself have worked within the education and training sector for the whole of my career. However, in 2018-19, the training budget was £405,000 with a spend of £332,000. To date this year, against a budget of £555,000, only £298 has been spent. Surely, being realistic about training expenditure and deploying the most efficient and effective methods of delivery and ultimately saving £150,000 can only be a responsible move. On the investments, Liberal Democrats believe, as I'm sure we all do, that environmental crimes such as fly tipping, littering and dog fouling create an environment that encourages further acts. Once one person has done it, others follow suit. To focus on the prevention of those crimes and quickly remedy acts that do occur can only create a positive atmosphere and encourage residents to have pride in where they live, therefore preventing future incidences. It is therefore proposed that the current administration increase their investment in tackling environmental crime by £571,000 in 2021 and a further £276 in 21-22, specifically to target and prosecute our offenders and clean up our communities. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Curley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While I welcome the inclusion in the opposition amendment for the reinstatement of the payments to the parish councils, I think that might hopefully be favourably looked on, particularly given the council leaders' newfound enthusiasm for Saddleworth Parish Council this week, and the fact that we do have a new working relationship, and maybe we can work on that. But I can assure Councillor Gloucester that we have looked at the budget. I don't know. He just throws these things out there sometimes for gain and have a go at somebody, but we have done. And you've missed a trick, Councillor Gloucester, because as my colleague Councillor Byrne said, perhaps we should be looking at ourselves a little more. She mentioned deputy cabinet positions. That's £50,974 a year. And the district leads, which is also £41,948 a year. We could save over £92,000 a year. You could restore the parish council funding through that. But the other trick that perhaps you missed was payments to shadow cabinet members. That's not been mentioned. Maybe you could look at that if you felt that savings could be made. Don't know.
Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You'll have to bear with me. I can't see properly, so I haven't got much struggle of it. I'm talking about the amendment that the Liberal Democrats have put forward, and it's the capital programme and investment. The health of the population of Shore and Crompton are important to the local councillors in Shore and Crompton, like it is everywhere else. We have a particularly higher population of elderly residents, and that is why myself and my colleague Howard, who can't be here tonight, have been persistent in speaking to people about getting the business plan together for this. That was 5 years ago, and when we started having meetings, they were talking about Chadderton being put in first and then Shore and Crompton, but it seems as if things have had a bit of a move around. So here's hoping. And sorry about this. So 5 years later, we don't know whether we're going to get it, but we're really hoping that we're going to get it. But it seems as if progress has been made, and there may be some in future for Saddleworth and Chadderton. God, I can't read it. Sorry, I'm really sorry about this. So our Shore and Crompton Health Centre serves thousands of people, and these come mainly from Shore and Crompton. We've had a surgery closed in Trent Road, which puts an impact on the surgery and the services that they can provide. They don't provide that many services because a lot of them have to go to Royton. It brings me, at this point, it brings me to the investment, which is about having more money in the districts. Now, the local improvement plan, fund, I know I sit on there to decide some of the, not decide, but give advice on some of the plans that have come forward. And there are some really good ones. People have really thought outside the box, and that's fantastic. But it's just one project. It's when you don't have the money all the time, you can't continue to do the projects that we do, like we help residents with grit bins and stuff like that. This, as I said in the council chamber in May 2019, what you're doing is you're penalising the many for the few, and that's not right, because other wards didn't spend their budgets properly, and now we're getting penalised for it. So shame on you lot.
Councillor Jabbar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I first of all echo what Councillor Chris Gloucester said about our staff. They've done a fantastic job, not just this year, but every year, to produce a balanced budget. So Chief Executive, Exec Directors, of course my Borough Treasurer and her financial team, thank you for doing that. Chris, thank you also for supporting most of our budget proposal. Can I deal with some of the issues that has been raised by various speakers this evening, Madam Mayor? It seems like many of them haven't read the Cabinet report, which I provided a very detailed response to the PBFM recommendation, and specifically the issues they raised. And it seems like they had a pre-prepared speech, and regardless of what's been said and which bit we've accepted, they continue to make the points. So perhaps a lesson for colleagues on the other side to learn from that. Okay, so specifically then, let's just say what's happening. In terms of the training budget, look, we have repeatedly reduced the training budget, and at a time when we're changing services, with coming up with new ideas. We just need that training budget there to make sure that we provide the right level of support and training to people engaged in new way of working and new method of working. So please accept that. That's a very important budget that we need to protect. Councillor Alhamdi, I think you just said that box cleverly. You know, nothing clever about your proposal in terms of investment, because all you've done is taken money from our capital program, which has already got a proposed expenditure, and then you said you're going to use it for all the items that you've got in your program. That's not clever. That's just sheer laziness and no understanding of local government finance at all. Now, some of the things that you proposed, I have said in my response that we will consider and we'll try to put in our capital program. So the health centre, you know, we said we will look at that and we will try to incorporate having a health centre both in Shore and in Chadderton. That's been said very clearly. But some of the other stuff that you talked about, so the green energy stuff, you know, you want to spend £5 million, but it doesn't say how. I'm glad you acknowledged that we have a proud record, and some of your colleagues, you know, contribute to that. We have said that in the capital program we've got 6 million, but more than that, we are developing a Green New strategy, Green New Deal strategy, that will set out what we want to do in relation to tackling climate change, and we will put in the necessary funding, rather than just for publicity, putting a figure out of the air, which is, by the way, using expenditure that we've already committed. I don't think that's very clever. And then in relation to this bit about the brownfield site, well, Councillor Roberts has already dealt with that. The footpath, look, had it not been for government taking £215 million out of our council, we would have been able to do something about this. You know what the backlog is in footway repairs? I'll tell you what it is, £18.92 million. Now, do I want to invest in that? Does this administration want to invest in it? Of course we do, but where do we get the money from? We haven't got the money. As the leader said in his opening speech, we've been hit the 5th hardest in the whole of the country in terms of resources that's been taken away from us. That's the reality. And as far as the issue of parish council is concerned, one hand you're saying, oh, well, there's been a reduction in council staff, therefore you should cut the funding for trade union activities. But on the other hand, you want to protect the money that goes to parish councils. So it doesn't follow. There isn't a consistency in your argument about that. Because we have... Agreed. We have lost £215 million from our overall budget. So therefore, there has to be a proportionate reduction in parish council. And that's what we've done. But every year, you bring the same thing back here again. And as for Councillor Byrne, you know, can I just say, do you appreciate the damage your government has done to poor households in this authority? I tell you right, inspectors from this council go to people's houses to collect council tax, and some of the properties, people have got no furniture, people haven't got any carpet, people haven't got nothing at all. And they're walking away distressed that we've got families like that in this borough. How can these people afford to pay the council tax? Yes, we need to increase it. Of course we need to increase the collection. We're doing everything we can. But what the fundamental problem is, Madam Mayor, is the devastating impact of welfare reform and the cuts that's been delivered to disposable income through benefits to each household. That's the reality. I tell you, when inspectors come and tell me this is what's happened, I'm at a loss, and frankly, I'm shamed. I'm absolutely shamed that in this day and age, in 2020, people have got no furniture, no carpet, no nothing. And we're expected to, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry I got a little bit emotional about it, but this is something that I do as a Cabinet Member for Finance on a daily basis. And people need to really understand the impact on individual families and households on the benefit cuts. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Leach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am a councillor for Saddleworth, Western Leith, and I know from our experience how useful this local investment fund now is to provide some real impetus to perhaps small scale, perhaps one-off for now, schemes that really will make a physical difference to communities in Saddleworth. Not only in Western Leith, but in Saddleworth South and in Saddleworth North. These projects will be successful, I'm sure. There's a lot of interest in them, and there's no reason at all why we can't continue to provide proposals for additional funding for new projects in future years. Councillors' allowances at the same time have gone up, and we haven't heard that mentioned very much. We can continue to support local small-scale initiatives with our own allowances, and I would argue that we should get businesses more involved in supporting activities such as the band. Thank you.
Councillor Fielding, do you wish to reply?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just a few things. So I think I'll start with a thing on which Councillor Gloucester and I can agree. He's absolutely correct to highlight that the Tories have stood up tonight and made a number of proposals but have not submitted an amendment which would see them be voted on, and members have the opportunity to decide on whether they take them forward. I anticipate that in my own ward where I live, I will receive a leaflet during the election at which the Tories will pledge to reintroduce fortnightly bin collections in the way that they called for in the paper just the other week. And yet, when the opportunity arises for them to bring forward a proposal to this council where they identify the funding that they will use to pay for it and for members to vote on it, they do not take that opportunity. There are a number of other things that have been brought forward tonight, including the situation with councillors' special responsibility allowances. Again, the opportunity to move those as a proposal for any changes is this evening in the form of a budget amendment in which the Liberal Democrats have brought forward themselves. So that's the bit on which we can agree. So now, there are a number of issues that were raised during the course of the debate on which I need to address the inaccuracies. The first, as Councillor Leach has helpfully highlighted, is that there have not been cuts to ward members' individual budgets. They were increased by 20%. I had £5,000 to spend last year in my ward. I now have £6,000. Not only that, but the creation of the Local Improvement Fund, a £500 million pot, means that my district and my ward now has access... 500 million? 500,000. Oh, God. I'll amend that. The £500,000 pot gives my ward and my members access to a significant amount of money for capital projects in the district that we otherwise would not have had. Previously, Failsworth, the two wards together, had only £20,000 to spend on capital projects in the district. We now have access to up to £500,000. And we make bids. We made bid for in excess of £200,000 worth of that cash in this round. We didn't get it all, of course, because we like to spread the love, and the committee allowed other projects such as the Satellite Centre in Saddleworth, the Trim Trail in High Crompton, not Labour areas by the way, but to access some of that funding. And so every part of the borough has benefited from the changes. Of course, the band contests have come up again. Now, I know I met with one of the organisers of the band contest who has my mobile number on speed dial, and when he is concerned about funding, about sustainability of those contests, he knows that he can pick up the phone to me and I can reassure him that what is being printed in focus leaflets is not true. The abolition of the district executives does not mean that the band contests have been scrapped. I was there a few months ago, last year. They still went ahead as planned, and they will still go ahead as planned this year. People in Saddleworth and beyond, and the people that come from all around the world to Saddleworth band contests needn't be worried, because their funding position is secure and they have an excellent team of volunteers that keep those band contests running every year. The issue around the health centres, Shaw, Chadderton and Saddleworth health centres are all in the capital programme, again, so you needn't be worried about that. The thing about trade unions, as I highlighted in my moving of the budget, People that work for this council are now doing the jobs that would previously been done by 2 or 3 or even more people. People are taking on bigger workloads. We know that stress in the workplace is higher than ever. We know that people are working harder than ever. And when they need support, they go to their trade union. And it would be absolutely the wrong time, with the pressure that our staff, our valued staff, are under, to reduce supports to the organisations that support them through their employment here at the council. I also want to say that it sits very uneasy with me, the suggestion that we should reduce funding to other parts of the borough so that we can reinstate it specifically to parish councils in Saddleworth and Shaw. Again, it is dishonest to claim that because all of the other councils around the country, or the majority of the other councils around the country that receive a grant that is passed on to parish councils, because they do that, that we should do it too. We are the 6th hardest hit council in the country in terms of local authority cuts. We provide social care, parish councils don't do that, and if it means that we take a few £1,000s a year off parish councils, and I do value the work that parish councillors do, they do it without pay, and I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate the newest Labour parish councillor in Saddleworth, Councillor John Batty, who was co-opted on Monday evening. But we take a few £1,000s off parish councils so that we can continue to provide services to vulnerable people here in Oldham. I don't think that that is an unreasonable ask. I think the thing that I found very offensive, though, was the description, not as propaganda on the rates of Borough Life, but as cat litter tray lining. We have the comms team sat in this chamber who work so hard on pulling that information together and making sure that local residents are kept informed about the way that their money is spent, about the events that the council is laying on, and about how people can access the services that they need from this local authority. When local media has declined and we have seen the loss of our local daily evening paper, and there are very few channels in which we can keep residents who don't have access to the internet informed, Borough Life is more valuable than ever. And it is insulting to describe it as cat litter tray lining. And finally, on the Burnham tax, or as it was described, Mayor Burnham has acknowledged that it is no way to fund local services. I acknowledged myself that council tax is a regressive form of taxation and we would rather have another system. But the reason that that precept has been increased to recruit those additional police officers is because the government has cut 2,000 police officers from the streets of Greater Manchester since 2010, and people are crying out for more police on their streets. So the reason that we are forced into this position of increasing the precept to fund blue light services is again because of government cuts. Now, the running thread through the amendment that has been brought forward tonight is what can we put in a leaflet in the elections in May. I know I talked about the Tories and their fortnightly bin collections. I can already see Councillor Murphy, his picture stood next to a dirty sign in Shaw saying, Labour voted not to clean this. I can see that picture already. They want to say that they will spend more money on remediating brownfield sites, but of course we know that the reason we cannot do that is because their government reduced that amount of funding. So, their thread is election leaflets, our thread is a vision for the kind of place that we want Oldham to be. And I've got another right of reply later on in this meeting which I'll use to outline that vision. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gloucester, do you wish to reply?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, fancy that. I suppose really, being as I've made notes, I need to go through them in order, so we'll start with Councillor Roberts. Brownfield remediation, Hartford Mill. So I thought Hartford Mill was a listed mill and never Brownfield. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you are. Brownfield is previously developed now.
Right, so...
Yeah, sorry.
Right. In relation to the leaflet and the revision of the local plan, are you telling us that the information that we've been given by officers is incorrect and there's not going to be revision of the local plan after all to assure the residents that are just hang on, I'm speaking, thank you. But to assure the residents who have up in arms in relation to GMSF to such an extent that in particular the Right and Labour councillors are out leafleting already, whereas they've not left it till the last week of April like they usually do. So, But anyway, let's turn to Councillor Hudson. We are in tune. So, in relation to Councillor Hudson, yeah, I am doing. This is the comments that the people have made in relation to my amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Councillor Hudson, we are in tune. Are you in tune with the people's feelings in regard to GMSF, that is a lot to do with your government and its policies? Are you in tune in relation to issues in the Oldham Borough, in relation to housing, in relation to housing shortage, in relation to homelessness, in relation to fuel poverty, in relation to deprivation, and most of all in relation to the £216 million that has been taken from this council by the Conservative government? And I think we all know what the answer to that is. So we'll see how in tune the electorate are with the Conservatives come May. The only thing I have to say in relation to what Councillor Byrne said in relation to council tax collection is I absolutely agree with what my colleague Abdul has said in relation to it. Councillor Curley, well, if we all read the copy of UKIP last year in relation to reduction in expenses and what have you, it would appear that he did actually get a copy and he read it because that was one of their policies. If it's any help to you, if you read the rest of his policies apart from the 2 weekly bin collection, that was actually like reading a Focus magazine. But there we go. I'm sorry to hear that I've missed a trick in relation to councillors' allowances, but unfortunately Councillor Curley's missed a trick because he quite clearly didn't go to the independent remuneration panel in January, like numerous people did, where representations in relation to all aspects of councillors' allowances were made. And not to worry, because he will be able to vote on it and comment on it come May when the independent remuneration panel report back. I really respect what my colleague Abdul has said. One thing I would just disagree with the Abdul is in relation to you saying that we don't know what we're doing because yeah, we've seen your comments on the PVFM and we should be sticking to those. But at the end of the day, this is our amendment to the budget, so it doesn't matter what PVFM says. What matters is that this is our amendment and we want it to go forward no matter what you say or what PVFM says. So we do understand it and we are doing it correctly, but I do understand, after this length of time, where you're coming from. And just in relation to Sean, the only thing I'm going to say, Sean, in relation to you is the band contest funding. Can you not just stand up and say, yes, we will give £15,000 to Saddleworth Parish Council to fund the band contest? That's all they want. That's all that they want you to do. You know, you said in the...
That's not what you're asking for.
What isn't? Of course it is. So, it's quite clear that we've asked for £15,000 to be funded from the from the town centre fund. £15,000 from the town centre fund. But you're not doing that, you're looking at it in other areas. That's what's said. Why can we not just say, yeah, you're getting your £15,000? And that really is all I've got to say, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Right, we're going to the vote and it will be recorded. This is a vote on the amendment.
Okay. Councillor Ahmed, Councillor Akhtar, Councillor Al-Hamdani, Councillor Ali, Councillor Alias, Councillor Ball, Councillor Marie Bashforth, Councillor Steve Bashforth, Councillor Briggs, Councillor Brownridge, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Chatterton, Councillor Cosgrove, Councillor Curley, Councillor Davis, Councillor Dean, Councillor Fielding, Councillor Gary, Councillor Chris Gloucester, Councillor Hazel Gloucester, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Hamlet, Councillor Hack, Councillor Harkness, Councillor Harrison, Councillor Hoban, Councillor Hudson, Councillor Hume, Councillor Aftab Hussain, Councillor Fida Hussain, Councillor Iqbal, Councillor Jabbar, Councillor Jakes, Councillor Larkin, Councillor Leach, Councillor Malik, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Moores, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Mushtaq, Councillor Fithian, Councillor Price, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Salamat, Councillor Shah, Councillor Sheldon, Councillor Shuttleworth, Councillor Stretton, Councillor Churjan, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Tour, Councillor Uraman, Councillor Williams, Councillor Williamson, Councillor Alexander.
Yeah, the amendment is lost. Back to the original motion. Council will now debate the original motion. Does any member wish to speak on the original motion?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I thought you were just doing something. Yeah, at the last meeting, we had a debate or a discussion about how social media, the lies and things that are put about from people. But, you know, what we're seeing here, and we've heard some of this tonight, is a similar sort of thing coming from very responsible people. Let's just touch on the GMSF. We all know who made that up. We all know where that came from. It was Tory party policy. And yet Conservatives are going around in leaflets. One's going out around writing now, blaming, saying that they're going to stop that. So can the Conservatives help us to stop that? Because it's Conservative party policy. The whole thing is driven by Conservative party policy. Just look at the Greenbelt thing. We've had all that. We don't want to build there and we won't. But we talk about building on previous developed or brownfield sites, and hopefully Hartford Mill will soon be one of those. And yet the Tories, the Conservatives, who said they were protecting the Greenbelt, took away the £86 million they'd pledged to help us clean up brownfield sites. And they also won't let us direct building there anyway. So they're telling people out there that they're going to protect it while taking away the means we have to do that protection. That's crazy, isn't it? And then let's go to the police. We've already heard, haven't we, that we had 20,000, well, we know we had 2,000 police officers cut from Greater Manchester over the past 10 years through austerity. So the Labour Mayor of Greater Manchester set that increase in council tax to fund additional police officers, which is starting to happen now. And the Tories, and possibly the Lib Dems, but mainly the Tories, criticised and give us grief for doing that we're putting the council tax up. And yet now, in another Tory leaflet going round, they're taking credit for these extra officers, while at the same time slating us for increasing the council tax to provide them. You just can't make it up, can you? Well, they do, yeah. So, there's a need to be responsible about the way things you tell people. And you need to be straight with people, and people are just not being, are they, here? It's absolutely ridiculous. Look at the cuts to the arm. I'm speaking, John. Look at the cuts to the armed forces. The British Army's at the smallest size it's been for hundreds of years. And what about the Navy? Furious because the Army are considering leasing one of the only two of the Queen Elizabeth class carriers we have to the United States, so they can deal with the budget cuts. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But that's the depths, people, in this that we're having to do as a country to cope with the horrific level of cuts, not savings, cuts, deep cuts that this Tory government has inflicted on us over the past 10 years. Look, they're even taking away the licence fee, the free
licence for over 75s in June. That'll be gone as well. How petty can you get? Now, one thing they did promise was to deliver Brexit. They've done that. Whatever you think about that, they've delivered a promise. But the sting in the tail there, isn't there? Because the new blue passports will be made in Poland by a French company. Absolutely ridiculous. Why is that not happening in this country, if we're so proud of it? The cuts are on all levels, we know that, from the people who can't pay the council tax, the poor people who are having to go to food banks, right up to the generals in the Navy and the Army who are having to make drastic cuts that will affect this nation, the way this government protects the country. So, and then we come here with this budget, and I think it's fantastic what we've done with so little. So I'm obviously supporting this budget, but I do think, I wasn't going to speak tonight, but listening to some of the things tonight I've had to. So, you know, the Tories have made this country an absolute, have really made a mess of people's lives in this country, and every little we can do in Oldham to help our people, we will. And hopefully people will see through the lies that people use in some of these ridiculous claims they make. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Shah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to start by also passing on my thanks to colleagues in this chamber, and in particular to our Chief Executive, Dr Carolyn Wilkins, OBE, and her executive management team, who, against the harrowing budget cuts, are delivering our budget. As the leader said tonight, these are comments that none of us in the chamber want to make. We all know that our funding from central government has been reduced significantly, with £250 million, like Councillor Jabbar told us earlier, cut from our budget. We also know that the government once claimed that austerity was over, but we and the people of Oldham know that that's not the case. Madam Mayor, across our wards, too many people are struggling. The direction of policy from government is clear. We're seeing a growth of zero-hour contracts, and pay for too many people remains below levels seen a decade ago. The housing crisis that Councillor Roberts alluded to earlier means people are too often in inappropriate or substandard homes, stuck in temporary accommodation or sleeping rough. Unequal funding sees richer parts of the country flourishing, whilst poorer areas like ours just see the growth in food banks. There's nothing more glaringly obvious than the truth that the government has not only never cared about our communities, but has completely given up on them. If there's going to be hope for our people, then that hope is going to come from Labour administrations like ours. I'm really pleased that people like Sir Michael Marmot are recognising the work we're doing here to overcome the barriers that have been created by this government. Everyone deserves the same opportunities to lead a healthy life, no matter where they live and no matter who they are. But there are a huge amounts still to do. In England today, there remains a 19-year gap in healthy life expectancy between the most and least affluent areas of the country. That, Madam Mayor, is a stark symbol of social injustice, that those living in the most deprived communities spend more years in ill health and die sooner. And closing this gap remains the biggest challenge that faces us. And so it's not our job to only keep reinforcing the message that health is much more than healthcare or the choices that we make in our diet, or whether we keep active, or whether we smoke or drink alcohol. But in actual fact, the best way of ensuring a long life in good health is to have a good start in life, a good education, and a warm and loving home, and a well-paid, secure job. So to put it simply, Madam Mayor, a job, a home, and an active lifestyle is what's needed. But that's why this Labour administration, under the exceptional leadership of my colleague, Councillor Sean Fielding, is prioritising these areas. In my portfolio, Madam Mayor, I see every day the negative impact that insecure work, poverty and poor health has on our communities, and this is what breeds the tensions and anger that lead to crime or violence. As a council, we have a vital role working in, with and for our communities to promote healthy and happy lives. Under this budget, we will continue reaching out, supporting residents to improve their lives and the lives of their neighbours. It's a budget for the council, but our best work, Madam Mayor, is done in partnership with our residents, and that's something that we'll continue to do in the year ahead. So, Madam Mayor, This budget tonight allows us to take control at a local level and build a brighter future for the people of Oldham, where people are not just getting by in life, but are getting on in life. And that's why I support this budget, and I urge others to do the same. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Torr.
Madam Mayor, we've heard from colleagues this evening about the impact budget cuts are having on our council and borough. I'm proud of the work we are doing to continue to deliver hundreds of services and minimising the impact on residents. I want to take a moment, however, to acknowledge the local impact austerity continues to have on our residents, despite the best effort of the council, as well as the way they are fighting back. Oldham was one of the first places to take on universal credit. The government's vehicle for some of the most vicious cuts fell directly by the residents. The system has left so many of our residents feeling like they have nowhere to turn. Many of them come to us as councillors looking for support, and we help however we can, but for many people, universal credit and austerity feels like a trap with no way out. Earlier this week, Oldham East and Saddleworth MP, Debbie Ibrahim, spoke in the Parliament, reading out the more than 20 names of people who have died as a direct result of their difficulty with the benefit system. This heartbreaking loss of life, like the queues outside food banks and people sleeping rough, is a shame on our government. I'm glad that as a Labour administration and as a local community, we are taking a stand. It is fantastic to see the way in which local groups are coming together to help each other. We have litter picks happening more and more around the borough, showing real community spirit and the desire to make our neighbourhood beautiful. Council streets cleaners do a brilliant job, but the work of volunteers tidying up their patch makes a huge difference. We have play streets where residents close down their street for the afternoon to make space for children to come together, socialise and play without having to worry about the traffic. We have the 58 project that received green dividend funding, doing things like rooftop gardening, creating more accessible shared spaces with renewable technology and creating wild habitats to promote biodiversity. Balancing the budget in the current climate while making Oldham a better place to live in is a massive ask. Without residents taking the lead with positive actions that make such a difference and show such a pride in their borough, it would be impossible. So I want to thank my colleagues and officers for the work that they have done preparing this budget, but I also want to thank our fantastic residents who really make it possible. Thank you.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since 2010, we have seen massive cuts to our council's budgets, which has resulted in a reduction of our services. We all know that. And I'm sure we all realise that this means that we have very little money or staff time to help with what is fully needed to support our residents. Some of these residents feel they are sinking, and we need to be able to help them, at least to come up for air. But we do things where we can. The benefit system should be a safety net. Did you realise that a family with 3 children are £2,512 a year worse off under universal credit? I don't know if any of you have been watching the BBC series on universal credit. It's very hard to watch, but you should do it. It's shameful that life expectancy rates have fell for the first time. But what can we do with public health money reduced and now deprivation removed from the government's fair funding formula? But here in Oldham we have the brilliant Warm Home Scheme, which helps with fuel poverty, local welfare provision, welfare rights support, citizens' advice sessions. We do try to support the 24,000 families who suffer from food poverty during the school holidays, and at Christmas this was in Gallery Oldham. We are working with schools on poverty-proofing a child's school day. We are setting up the Oldham's Poverty Truth Commission. Some of what we find through this will be upsetting and challenging. There will be grassroots commissioners who are residents who have personal experiences of poverty, and they will be placed with an equal number of civic and business leaders over a period of 12 to 18 months. It is hoped that we can use the learning from this to improve our services, improve relationships with local residents and community engagement. We are also working with the Children's Society, Action Together and many voluntary groups on the Coordinating the Crisis Support project. The main work streams for this are preparing a common referral form across all agencies, travel and emergency items, a universal pass which will help the homeless get access to a bank account and services, second-hand furniture scheme, translation and interpretation services, awareness of poverty raising, co-production, that's all the agencies working together, and legal help. The effects of poverty do not last a few weeks, they last a lifetime. One statistic keeps me awake at night. Out of an average class of 30 children, 9 are in poverty, and only one of those, one, will manage to get out of poverty, 8 won't. Last week I attended a Joseph Rowntree conference, and a speaker there said, and I quote, "In 15 years I went from being a financially independent home-owning full-time nurse to a divorced, homeless, single parent with 3 children on unpaid mat leave, suffering from depression following domestic abuse." She finished her speech with, "Poverty makes everyone suffer. We are all connected. We need to help each other stay afloat against poverty's rising tide." Poignant words. Poverty is not inevitable. Austerity was and is a political choice, and it is time to pull the plug on it.
Councillor Raymond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like other colleagues, I'd like to start by paying tribute to colleagues in this chamber, as well as the officers who worked so hard to prepare this budget and who managed to do so well over years. Across the Council, Madam Mayor, we have seen huge cuts in recent years, as my colleagues have already highlighted. Every service has been affected, with each part of the Council looking for ways to do more for less. My portfolio of neighbourhood services hasn't been immune. Every decision to send out the gritters in cold weather, to improve our parks, or to inspect the hygiene of a restaurant becomes more and more difficult as the budget gets tighter. Despite the difficulties, Madam Mayor, created by a government that's only too happy to pass the cost of austerity and blame to local councils, we have taken a positive approach to these issues. We have invested in street cleaning because we know that it really matters to people that their environment is clean and tidy. And at the same time, we're going hard after fly tippers and other people who choose not to do their bit to make Oldham a nice place to live. We've continued to invest in flowers in the town centre, and areas like the Wildflower Meadow in the centre of Royton. On the face of it, Madam Mayor, it's the sort of thing that feels like a luxury, but we feel it's worth it to give people a pleasant town centre, something unlike other towns in this region, something to be proud of. And winning the North West in Bloom once again this year shows what a fantastic job our team do. Our investments in parks around the borough, from the new pocket park in Waterhead, to the trim trail in High Crompton Park, to the magnificent Northern Routes project next to Alexandra Park make Oldham stand out. They make Oldham great, place to live now and for our children in the future. As I've said, these choices are hard to make, but they're the sort of positive, long-term choices that put Oldham on the right path. And they're the sort of positive, long-term choices that only a Labour administration will make. This is the theme that runs throughout this budget, and I'm proud to support it, Madam Mayor, and I urge colleagues to support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this budget that's before us tonight is the best we could possibly do. But just let's think what we could actually do if we hadn't had the austerity and the cuts. As an example, in 2010, there was a programme to to build a new health centre in Shaw, to build one in Saddleworth, and to build one in Chadderton. And of course, the Tories and the Lib Dems cut that in 2011, that programme. So we'd have had up-to-date, modern health facilities which are requested. We look again at derelict land grant, that this authority benefited around £3 million a year. Again, 2012, cut. No money left at all. And we see the poverty around us. We see the five-fold increase in homelessness. We see and look at people on universal credits that finish up with £7 after they've paid all the bill to spend on food for themselves and their families. That isn't right, Madam Mayor. It's something that every service and everything we touch in the public sector is really, really fragile, and it's going down the neck. And we really have to do something about it, because the whole of society is going to crumble, particularly in deprived areas, which unfortunately many areas in Oldham have that category, are in that category. And it really concerns me that unless this government addresses these issues quite quickly, we're going to see suffering that this council, well, this country and this town hasn't seen since the 1930s and probably longer. We're probably going to see the introduction of new health problems that again cost money. And it's like all these particular elements that I'm just referred to. What happens is that the money reduces, the problems increase, and what we finish up with is people suffering, and they're suffering dramatically in Oldham and many other towns in this country. So the budget is good, it's the best we can do, but just think of what we could actually do with that £216 million. Just think how we could improve services. Just think of the provision we could actually have in the borough that we don't have now. And it really is startling that we actually in a country that is actually prepared to put up with that, because really I think people really should get more fire in the bellies right throughout our communities and oppose actually what's happening to them.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I'm going to talk briefly about some more of the things that we intend to do with the money that we've put in the capital programme. But before I do that, I think I'd like to follow on from what Councillor Dean has just said. I was very struck by a report that I read, written by Jennifer Williams in the Manchester Evening News this week. And one of the things that kind of sticks in my mind from what she said is that levelling up is about more than just men in suits sitting in a room talking about trains. What levelling up, if it means anything, must surely mean is about restoring the kind of the confidence and the support that communities like Oldham need. It's about doing something about the the traverses of justice that have been visited upon people in Oldham through the so-called welfare reform, the imposition of universal credit, sanctions, cuts in disability payments and reductions in household incomes. All of these are things which need to be addressed. And while it is welcome that we will be getting capital investment money, both from outside and from the money that we're borrowing ourselves in order to be able to invest, because we're not waiting for the government to come along and do it all for us. We are doing things for ourselves. I have to say that without ongoing revenue funding and without money being invested in things that people need to live day-to-day decent lives, we can only do so much. And the money that we have lost from the council's budget is the revenue money that enables us to do those things. And the holes that we're trying to fill by using the capital budget, where we can still borrow money to spend, are holes, and gaps will remain. But having said that, we know that we've got very high demand for affordable and social housing in the borough. We currently have about 7,500 people in identified housing need who need new homes. We have an up-to-date housing strategy, and we now, with Building a Better Place in the Flexible Housing Fund, have some money to start to address the needs that we have identified. The Marmot report has already been referred to several times in this chamber tonight, and the conclusion that it comes to is that health inequalities develop from a complex interaction of many factors, including the quality of the home that you live in. Now, we already do some things in order to try to help people. Councillor Fielding referred to Warm Homes Oldham earlier on, and we already have put in the housing strategy a big section around needing to work together around health and social care as well as housing. And we have got detailed plans which we will be bringing forward. We are launching a new housing partnership on Friday this week, where we'll be talking to partners, putting our money and our investment on the table, talking to partners about what they can bring and how we can work together to do the best that we can to provide the homes that people in Oldham need. And that includes what I've already talked about, ways of unlocking brownfield sites, and brownfield sites, just for clarity, are previously developed land. They can have a mill on them, they can have grass on them. Brownfield is land that has previously been built on. And we will do our best to deliver the sustainable, affordable and desirable homes, both in the town centre and across the borough, that people need. But as I started by saying, what we actually need is a welfare system that provides welfare and support. We need a tax system that benefits people who work hard, and we need a system that means that people who are in work don't have to claim benefits.
Agree. Councillor Surger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and just thank you for the opportunity to let me speak. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I couldn't just sit by and not say anything. So as many of you would know, that I work in the third sector and I work for a charity organisation, and a lot of the women and the young people that come through my doors over the recent years have suffered a lot under the Tory government. It's absolutely disgusting that I have to drop the work that I do to help women who are suffering from homelessness, who have been evicted from their homes, who have been suffering from DV and other issues because they've not been able to get the correct support because of austerity. We've seen cuts to benefits, we've seen cuts to EMA that young people could no longer access. We've seen that, for example, families who have larger families with children, more than 2 kids, have been affected because there's been benefits to cap on 2 children only for child benefits. Over the last 10 years, the Tory austerity has meant local services such as Bernardo's in coldest area has shut down. I remember in 2009-2010 when colleagues across the third sector, in the charity sector, said that there's going to be a lot of cuts to be faced and it's going to be detrimental first and foremost to the third sector. I was very, very sceptical, but needless to say, that passed. And it's absolutely shocking the amount of women's refuge centres, youth centres, children's services that have been shut down because of the austerity. This forecast has come to pass. As a council, we've done what we can with the limited amount of funding that we've received. And needless to say, in the next few years, when we receive more funding cuts, we're going to be impacted even more. But I have no doubt that the budget that's been proposed by our colleagues at Cabinet is the correct one and the right one for our residents and reflects them best and has their best interest at heart. Thank you very much.
Councillor Jakes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When the United Nations produced its report on poverty, it was really, really shocking reading. 1/5 of the 5th richest nation in the world lives in poverty. The statistics are that by 2021, close to 40% of children are predicted to be living in poverty. This is in a really, really rich nation. We feel this in our borough all the time, but I know as councillors you come across people who are really, really struggling. But this report also says that poverty is a direct result of government policies. It's in black and white. It says despite councils setting creative solutions and charities stepping in to fill holes, and I agree with Councillor Torr about the communities that really step in to bring our communities together, the government is in a state of denial. Well, I would suggest tonight, Councillor, that maybe you're in a state of denial about...
No, you are.
About
you won the election in
this is not... This is the thing. I'm happy to give you my copy.
That's left-wing
Does any other member wish to speak before I give Councillor Fielding the right to reply?
You need to get home and watch match.
Councillor Williams.
Madam Mayor, what I was going to say when you just asked me then, so here we go. Everybody in this council chamber, just think of this. Just think of this. Do you know, everybody, do we ever really think about tonight? I've done this now for 14 years altogether in a row. I've sat at this here and voted for the council tax. Madam Mayor, this is one meeting out of the whole calendar in the year where we have a direct influence on the households of every single person in this borough. And do you ever really think about that? Everybody said some great contributions from all over, but you never ever really sit down and think about it. And sometimes, Madam Mayor, when you get a slagging off from someone that's saying, you're a waste of time as a councillor, you know God, and it's happened to all of us loads and loads of times. I always tell them and say this, you go in that council chamber, put your hand up and vote for that council tax, and 220,000 people affected by my little old hand going up, and you're thinking, crikey, what a powerful moment that is. Do we ever sometimes think about that? And can I just refer you, Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, just for a minute, to Brian Obbin. When he got elected on that Thursday, I saw him in a pub on Sunday, celebrating with his family. And his family's sitting there, and I shook hands with the guy. I thought, I didn't want him to win, but I don't want to fall out. Just, Brian, you won, fair dues. And talking to his family members, one of them turned and he said, Stephen, what's it like? And I turned and I said, when it gets to February, he's going to feel it when he has to vote for the council tax. And one of his family members said, oh no, he don't have to vote, he's independent. Yeah, he does. No, he doesn't. Yeah, he does. He's a councillor. He has to vote one way or the other. Abstain, vote against. You have to take part. And the rationale sometimes, Madam Mayor, with some of the younger members that's just joined, all the last May, will they feel out this in 14 years' time? Hopefully they're as long as I am. There's loads I could say, and I don't want to waffle on too long. Just going back to the cuts, imagine somebody down in Whitehall saying, get hold of your chief exec, get hold of your gaffer, get them sat down in London and say, right, Oldham Council, you've apportioned your money incorrectly, so you're not having that amount of money anymore. To the police, to the fire service, and anybody else, you're not spending your money right. Get it spent right, you can have it now. Nobody's ever said that about Oldham. So what's that all about? So how can any government, like the Tories, thinking we're going to keep giving Oldham that kicking, you're going to get that battered and just eat it up like good boys and girls and suffer? It's appalling, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, yesterday I was in the police control room, very privileged being in there yesterday for 2 or 3 hours, and you could see the grade of responses that the jobs are getting. I won't go on about it too much, but you just realise the pressure that the police are under, and you just realise how some of this has all come about. The fact that we're having 350 bobbies isn't through central governments, because us as a council, the police and crime panel, and all the other authorities in Greater Manchester talk, and the Burnham wants us to spend 35 quid, so we'll do it with it. Same as gone for the fire service from the firefighters. But anyway, Madam Mayor, let me just end by saying this. Oh my God. If I'd have thought, when I got on the council in 2002, so let me just tell this along, that guy over there, John Batty, there was one meeting I was at, long before I got on the council, way back I think it was 1996, and John Johnson was deputy leader at the time, and he turned to the Labour group and he goes, guys, I've got some really bad news here. We've got to save £7 million in our budget. Oh God, shock, horror. My God, what, 7 million? And look what's happened now, Sean. Look what's happened now. So if I look back to the time I got on the council in 2002 and I had to take that first vote for the council tax, Who would have thought, Madam Mayor, all those years later, that we'd be discussing a budget where we've had a £208 million cut? Unbelievable. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Fielding, right to reply.
Madam Mayor, you need to be more enthusiastic about my forthcoming contribution. Right. Well, first of all, I do need to thank our finance team for helping the Cabinet pull together this budget, bringing forward the proposals that have been presented to Council tonight. I made reference to how the amendment was a budget that had election literature in mind, whereas our budget is one that has a vision. It is one that will protect the vulnerable. It is one that has no compulsory redundancies. It is a budget that proposes a modest increase in council tax, lower increase in council tax than at least 6 of the other local authorities in Greater Manchester. But it is also one that is ambitious for Oldham. It has a clear vision for investment and for putting this council on a sustainable footing. I was at an event yesterday morning at Madlow Youth Zone in partnership with Insider North West. It was an event that was attended by more than 100 business people from across the region, investors, property developers, people that want to come and spend their money in Oldham on developing residential units in Oldham Town Centre, leisure facilities in Oldham Town Centre and other facilities right across the borough. And the reason they want to do that is because they have seen this Labour administration take a vote of confidence in Oldham. We have had the most significant increase in our capital programme ever, and of any council that I'm familiar with, up to £306 million. Our ambitious investment plans include a sustainable future for Tommyfield Market, a plan to shape the place in Oldham Town Centre, a plan to build the homes that we need, and with our flexible housing fund, do so whilst reducing the demand to allocate Greenbelt for housing development as the Tories require us to, and to bring more people to live, work and invest in Oldham Town Centre, supporting our local economy. But it's not just about Oldham. This is a budget for the entire borough. We're investing in Royton Town Hall, for example, a new school in Saddleworth, and contrary to the protest this evening, Chadderton, Shaw and Saddleworth's health centres are in the capital programme. We're also investing in making Oldham a green borough. Down in my patch in Failsworth, we have plans to build a solar farm to generate green electricity and also deliver a return for the council to help put us on a sustainable financial footing. So this isn't about shiny buildings, it's not about discrete projects, it's about the kind of place that we want Oldham to be and the kind of place that residents voted for Oldham to be. An ambitious place with a thriving town centre, thriving districts and the best that everybody deserves in all of our towns and villages. It's also a plan that as I've said, puts the council on a more sustainable financial footing. Our investments will deliver a year-on-year return of £11 million when fully on stream. £11 million revenue saving, which is money that can be ploughed back into those services that we provide to the most vulnerable. £11 million every year to provide children's social care, adult social care, to provide services for the vulnerable, elderly, young people and disabled people. It's a budget that has that balance of ambition, but also that commitment to looking after the most vulnerable in our communities. And if it does look good on a Labour Party election leaflet, then that's just a bit of serendipity. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The original motion will now go to the vote. It's a recorded vote.
Councillor Ahmed? Councillor Akhtar? Councillor Al-Hamdani? Councillor Ali? Councillor Alias? Councillor Ball? Councillor Marie Bashforth? Councillor Steve Bashforth? Councillor Briggs? Councillor Brownridge? Councillor Byrne? Councillor Chadderton? Councillor Cosgrove? Councillor Curley? Councillor Davis? Councillor Dean? Councillor Fielding? Councillor Gary? Councillor Chris Gloucester? Councillor Hazel Gloucester? Councillor Goodwin? Councillor Hamlet? Councillor Hack? Councillor Harkness? Councillor Harrison? Councillor Hobin? Councillor Hudson? Councillor Hume, Councillor Aftab Hussain, Councillor Fida Hussain, Councillor Iqbal, Councillor Jabbar, Councillor Jakes, Councillor Leach, Councillor Malik, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Moores, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Mushtaq, Councillor Fithian, Councillor Price, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Salamat, Councillor Shah, Councillor Sheldon, Councillor Shuttleworth, Councillor Stretton, Councillor Surjan, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Tour, Councillor Uraman, Councillor Williams, Councillor Williamson, Councillor Alexander.
I declare that the motion is carried. Item 4C, I call on Councillor Jabbar to move and Councillor Vealing to second the Treasury Management Strategy Statement 2021. Councillor Jabbar.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? No. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Council must now vote on the resolutions detailed within the summons. Does Council note the agreed council tax base for the year 2021 as agreed on 16th of December 2019? Agreed. Does Council approve the council tax requirement for the council's own purpose for 2020-21 as detailed within the summons? Does any member wish to speak? This is a recorded vote.
Councillor Ahmed, Councillor Akhtar, Councillor Al-Hamdani, Councillor Ali, Councillor Alias, Councillor Ball, Councillor Marie Bashforth, Councillor Steve Bashforth, Councillor Briggs, Councillor Brownridge, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Chatterton, Councillor Cosgrove, Councillor Curley, Councillor Davis, Councillor Dean, Councillor Fielding, Councillor Gary, Councillor Chris Gloucester, Councillor Hazel Gloucester, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Hamlet, Councillor Hack, Councillor Harkness, Councillor Harrison, Councillor Hobin, Councillor Hudson, Councillor Hume, Councillor Aftab Hussain, Councillor Fida Hussain, Councillor Iqbal, Councillor Jabbar, Councillor Jakes, Councillor Leach, Councillor Malik, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Moores, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Mushtaq, Councillor Fithian, Councillor Price, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Salamat, Councillor Shah, Councillor Sheldon, Councillor Shuttleworth, Councillor Stretton, Councillor Surjan, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Tour, Councillor Uraman, Councillor Williams, Councillor Williamson, Councillor Alexander.
Does Council agree that the amounts as detailed within the summons calculated for the year 2020-21 in accordance with the sections 31A to 36 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992? Does any member wish to speak? This is also a recorded vote.
Councillor Ahmed, Councillor Akhtar, Councillor Hamdani, Councillor Ali, Councillor Alias, Councillor Ball, Councillor Marie Bashforth, Councillor Steve Bashforth, Councillor Briggs, Councillor Brownridge, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Chatterton, Councillor Cosgrove, Councillor Curley, Councillor Davis, Councillor Dean, Councillor Fielding, Councillor Gary, Councillor Chris Gloucester, Councillor Hazel Gloucester, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Hamlet, Councillor Hack, Councillor Harkness, Councillor Harrison, Councillor Hoban, Councillor Hudson, Councillor Hume, Councillor Aftab Hussain, Councillor Fida Hussain, Councillor Iqbal, Councillor Jabbar, Councillor Jakes, Councillor Leach, Councillor Malik, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Moores, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Mushtaq, Councillor Fithian, Councillor Price, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Salamat, Councillor Shah, Councillor Sheldon, Councillor Shuttleworth, Councillor Stratton, Councillor Surjan, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Tour, Councillor Uraman, Councillor Williams, Councillor Williamson, Councillor Alexander.
Does Council note that for the year 2021, the Mayoral Police and Crime Commissioner Precept and the Mayoral General Precept, including Fire Services for Greater Manchester, have been issued to the Council as detailed in the summons? Does any member wish to comment? You'll be pleased to know this is not a recorded vote. Does Council agree to the noted? Thank you. Does Council agree to set the aggregate amounts as detailed within the summons as the amount of Council tax for 2021 for each part of its area and for each of the categories of dwellings? Does any member wish to speak? This is a recorded vote.
I'll go a bit slowly while colleagues are joining us back in the chamber. Councillor Ahmed, Councillor Akhtar, Councillor Al-Hamdani, Councillor Ali, Councillor Alias, Councillor Ball, Councillor Marie Bashforth, Councillor Steve Bashforth, Councillor Briggs, Councillor Brownridge, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Chatterton, Councillor Cosgrove, Councillor Curley, Councillor Davis, Councillor Dean, Councillor Fielding, Councillor Gary, Councillor Chris Gloucester, Councillor Hazel Gloucester, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Hamlet, Councillor Hack, Councillor Harkness, Councillor Harrison, Councillor Hoban, Councillor Hudson, Councillor Hume, Councillor Hussain, Councillor Fida Hussain, Councillor Iqbal, Councillor Jabbar, Councillor Jakes, Councillor Leach, Councillor Malik, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Moores, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Mushtaq, Councillor Fithian, Councillor Price, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Salamat, Councillor Shah, Councillor Sheldon, Councillor Shuttleworth, Councillor Stratton, Councillor Surjan, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Tour, Councillor Uraman, Councillor Williams, Councillor Williamson, Councillor Alexander.
Just to note that this has then been agreed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes the business for this evening.
All right.